things you wouldn't believe. Dondi clowns on fire off the shoulder of Orion. A-high Frankensteins glittering in the dark near the Tannhauser Gate. All these moments will be lost in time, like T1 Migos in the rain. Time to die.
So
Hey,
Starlog 60 from July of 82. We're here to talk about Blade Runner. Released same day as The Thing, I think you said, Max, right? June 25th, 1982. Is that
that's
correct?
correct.
I really
That
enjoyed
is
Ryan
correct.
Gosling in this. No, just kidding. Just joking. This is obviously the Harrison Ford
Boo!
version.
Boo!
Oh, yeah, he was terrible. He was terrible. I really,
Oh
I like
wow.
this is Harrison Ford movie. And I just have to say, we were talking a little bit before, is at the time when I saw it, I was 13 years old. And as much as it was a cool sci-fi film, I didn't understand much of it because I think I was a little too young. But I think, Rich, you were probably around the same age I was. And
Yeah,
Max already was a full-grown
I'm the
tree at that point.
same as you, Lou. I went to see this movie because I was like, Harrison Ford, he's Han Solo and Indiana Jones. And I was probably about 13 at the time. And I was like, well, I don't know what this movie is. And I even had the Marvel Comics adaptation of it. And even that made no sense to me. And to be honest, the first time I saw it, I was kind of bored by it because it was just over my head at that time. It wasn't
Yes.
what I was looking
Yes.
for. It didn't talk to a 13-year-old boy necessarily, or I
He
wasn't
wasn't
an
throwing a whip
intellectual
around or
13-year-old
shooting
boy at the time.
he
But I
wasn't
think
throwing a whip
Max,
around or jumping through space like Han
Max, you
Solo.
Yeah.
were at the height of the period where this movie would have spoken to you because it was
Yeah.
quite popular and had a cult following at the time. It wasn't a massive hit, but there were like real sci-fi fans that loved this movie when it came out because it was actually considered to be sort of an actual authentic science fiction movie. You know, it wasn't Star Wars per se or The Thing or something along those lines. But so tell us what did you think, Max, when you saw it back in the day?
Well, for me, because I am a little bit older than you guys, and maybe that made it different in how I viewed it because I a lot of the sci-fi stuff, they were just advancements on all the alien spaceship kind of stuff. And this movie, I really, really liked it. I liked the way that it was done. I think that director Ridley Scott did an awesome job of putting this together in a way that kind of blended so many different cool genres and adding that sci-fi futuristic thing in a very realistic way without trying to dazzle us too much with a lot of blinky lights and stuff. It showed us a future that where technology was advanced, certainly to quite some degree, just on what the Blade Runner was about. I mean, with the androids and stuff, but I mean the flying ships, but the dirty city. You
Dirty
saw,
City.
poverty, decay. You saw just a lot of stuff. And more what I would have envisioned how the future really would be like, and not guys in silver suits. And I thought it was really neat, and for me too, because I came into this movie as a big fan of Heavy Metal magazine as well.
Yes.
So you get a lot of that futuristic kind of, like, sometimes it's the post-apocalyptic or whatever. But I thought the whole gritty um, blend of action, detective, and we were talking about the voiceover thing before we came on here. So I I,
Yeah.
I really dug it. I thought it was an incredible movie.
So you got it because you were older and had way
Yeah,
different
I
taste
mean,
than Rich and I, for sure.
yeah, I see, because I didn't know what to expect when I saw it. I kind of, you could read, like, for me, I probably saw it on VHS first, than
You know,
anything else. So, as opposed to in
So
the
you didn't
theater.
see
This
it
is
in
a
the
movie that
theater?
I would go. No, I didn't. I don't remember seeing this one in the theater.
I think I saw it on
Because
HBO first. I think that's where I saw
I,
it. I believe I could be
yeah, I
wrong.
probably saw it. I probably saw it on VHS when it was released later. Because, like I said, I spent a lot of the '80s not in the United States of America
Right.
because of my military time, and so I did a lot of these '80s movies. A lot of them, my first view of them was on VHS. So, but yeah, this one here was a standard for me. I love this. I probably have VHS copy of it here in my house, and I love this movie.
Yeah. Now the
You know,
article's kind of interesting because it's an interview with Ridley Scott, who I think
hmm
some of the kind of interesting things that he mentions in the article is one of the things he specifically says because, like you said, this is one of the probably everybody brings this movie up as one of their favorite science fiction films, and Blade Runner fans are they're just they're rabid Blade Runner fans. You know, people love Blade Runner. They love that movie, and they can dissect that
right,
movie up and down.
Wait,
And
we
there
are
are
talking about
what
the original one, right? There, Dr.
right, not
Durant,
the
the
Ryan
original
the one
one.
from
Gosling one.
Not the new
1982.
one. Not the Ryan
Yeah,
Gosling one.
the other one we can cut. We can cut that one up too.
But what are there like 700 director's cuts of this movie? Because it's kind of interesting because
Easy.
in the article, Ridley Scott mentions number one, he says, I want this movie to be fun. It's not a lecture, but it is a really serious, like sci-fi film. It is,
Yeah, no
it's not
joke.
really a lecture, but it's a very deep philosophical film. I think that's the way a lot of
Absolutely.
people interpret it. And I think that's the way
Yeah,
he's even interpreted it over the years because he keeps sort of changing it up and changing the story and changing around his different cuts of it. I too, like you said, Max, the first version I saw was the original version with the hard-boiled detective voiceover from Harrison Ford, which everybody supposedly hates. I love that version. I think it's
I thought that
cool.
was
I do
I think
too.
that gives it that sort of
yeah.
futuristic detective story. It's still my favorite version of the film. I do like some of the changes they made in some of the later versions to indicate spoiler alert on a movie from 1982. If you haven't seen it, I'm going to spoil something here. So for the
Fast
next
forward
2 minutes,
now.
possibly fast forward, but
If they haven't seen it by now, you're hopeless.
they really push that Deckard himself is a replicant, which people always sort of theorized after seeing the film. And then in
Right.
later cuts, Ridley Scott has sort of cemented it that, yeah, Deckard was a replicant himself as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you kind of I sort of started to pick up sort of towards the end because it kind of like he doesn't know, does he? Right? And they never
Right.
really out and say it. But just watching the body language and some of the interaction, you kind of get an idea that he might be. And it's interesting because this movie is kind of loosely based on, do androids dream in electric, or do androids dream
Electric
of
Sheep.
electric
Yeah.
sheep? Yeah, and in the book or the story, the word replicant isn't there. They don't refer to them as
Correct.
replicants.
Yeah.
They're androids, and replicant is pretty much came to be because of this movie. That term
Right.
replicant, and
He mentions that in the article. He says that I don't like the term
mhm,
android, so we came up with the
right,
term replicant.
replicant, and it now I mean today if you were to talk about saying something about a replicant, everyone knows what a replicant would be, right? A man-made human, and as opposed to in the past an android was a man-made person, but replicant, that's I take that right back to Blade Runner, and that's where it comes from.
Sounds more
You
replicant.
know,
Sounds more realistic than Android, doesn't it?
correct.
Maybe because we
It
have
does.
Android phones, but replicant makes it sound like it's as pretty freaking close to a human as you could possibly get. You know what I mean?
Right,
And I like what. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Max. I'm sorry.
That's right.
no, I was just going to say, yeah, exactly, because when you think of Android, I think in other views, I mean, look at the Star Trek androids, um, without emotion. They have some of the characteristics of humans. That they can look, they can move, they can do all of those things, but there's something about that. Uh, they're missing like the soul, right? Whereas
Right.
these replicants in this movie, they have memories, they have all the feelings, the emotions, everything that a born human would have. And I think
Right.
that's where the term replicant makes much more. I think it's a much more exacting term than to call them android.
Right.
Well, it's
And I think
definitely
that's what the. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, no. Go right. Go ahead.
Well, I think that's the point he was trying to make in the film to a certain degree, where it's that's one of the sort of recurring themes under it is that the replicants are the problem is they are human, and it's cruel what the companies have done to them, that they have a 4-year lifespan, and if they try and run off and live their life, the Blade Runners are sent after them to kill them, and that's what Deckard is. And what replicants
Mhm.
really are is they're sort of this genetically created second class citizens, and they're used for war and they're used for industry, which is what in reality is what usually working class people are used for, right? Like you send them off to war, you send them off to work in your factories, and you don't think of them as human beings. So that's sort of the thesis there, is that, well, they are, you just think of those machines to fight your wars and to build your stuff, and
Mhm.
they have souls. And that's the speech I kind of joked about at the beginning that Roy Batty gives at the end. He's like,
Mhm.
I've seen all these amazing, wonderful things, and
Mhm.
people interpret that so many different ways, and it's sort of him having a soul, where he says, and now
Yep.
I'll be dead and these will be lost like tears in the rain. I think I could be wrong, but I think that Rutger Hauer improved a
Yep.
lot of that.
Rutger.
It kind of came up with a lot of.
I was just gonna bring up some of the cast, and because, like you said, Rutger Hauer is like you know, he was a warrior,
Right.
and then the other class that you left out was the entertainment class. Of course, who
Oh
can
yeah,
watch
yeah.
Blade Runner and not remember Daryl Hannah as Pris, an
Mm.
entertainer model, right? And there was another one that was like a female, Rachel. What was she more? She was also more of a fighter class, but
Joanna Cassidy. She's the one that like really she was wearing like sort of the clear raincoat, and she had the snake
right, and
breast.
The clear
yep,
raincoat.
Yeah.
right,
Yes.
Joanna Cassidy. And Sean Young played Rachel, and yeah, I mean, it was a great. I mean, obviously, we talked about Harrison Ford, Rutger Hauer, um, Daryl Hannah. Like I said, this, some of that interaction, with those people, and even the guy that played J.F. Sebastian, who
Yep.
kind of worked for Terrell Industries or something, and he made his own little Tinker Tot robots and stuff that he was living in because
He
he.
Yeah.
So
He was
it
Larry.
was really,
Larry, Daryl, and Daryl, the guy that played
there you
J.S.
go.
Sebastian. He was on Newhart. He was like,
Yep,
I'm Larry. My brother Daryl is my other brother Daryl.
yep.
But yeah, there was
So
that was a great cast. A lot of great character actors in
yep,
there. Emmett Walsh, I think, is the head of the Blade Runners. He's sort of Harrison Ford's
right.
boss. And of course, you've got he says my favorite line in the movie, and I think they didn't put that line in the movie till the end. Was Edward James Olmos says, she's not going to live, but then again, who does? He has a great line.
Right.
Like I love that line.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ridley Scott did an awesome job in this, and it's interesting that he did this coming off of Alien from 1979, and then later on went on to Prometheus, Gladiator, all these other movies that he did,
Yep.
and the Alien Covenant and stuff. But it's, even though it's a sci-fi genre, it's totally, that's the Alien is that outer space alien kind of thing. You get this sci-fi here done totally different, gritty, dark, not I
Not
thought it
Star
was great.
Wars. Definitely not Star
And
Wars.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, Max.
No, it's okay.
yeah, and so you take all of that scenery, and I mean, it was majestic scenery. I mean, it was incredible. And then of course you add the musical score in there that brings that emotion, that music score from Vangelis.
Yeah, he talks about that in
You
the
know,
article, the Vangelis score. And what's interesting in the article is I'm a huge Ridley Scott fan too. It's like sometimes I don't want to like him, but every time I see one of his films, I love him. And I mean, he was one of the first guys that brought in working class. That was Alien. Was like he was like they're all going to be working class truckers in space. That's what Alien is. And this is the same thing. It's a lot of working class people. So, real science fiction. It's not like Max said, people in domed cities in silver suits and the
right?
bourgeoisie talking about things. Kind of like how
Well,
Logan's Run is.
and he's got that strong female character. In Alien,
Right.
you get the strong female characters. You Thelma and Louise, he did G.I. Jane, other stuff like that too. So
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing in the article is they interview him and he says, you know what, I really don't think I'm a great director. I'd rather just be a producer. There's too much pressure on being a director. and he's still directing movies to this day. He never stopped directing films, which is kind of interesting.
Well, I guess that pretty much covered it. I think we did. I think if you haven't seen the movie, you should go and see it. I'm
Yeah,
Max
Ryan
Overnighter,
Gosling's
and I
great
approve
in it.
this. Yeah, he's great in it.
The light that burns twice as bright burns half as long, and we have burned so very, very brightly. I'm
Yes,
Dr.
we have.
Durant, also known as Rich Hurley. You can find me on YouTube at Dr. Durant's Sanctum. And who's the Italian fella
Max
up there that
Overnighter.
keeps talking about Ryan
Yep.
Gosling?
Ryan Gosling. Yes, I am not Ryan Gosling, but I am Max Overnighter.
He's right.
Contributor, storyteller, and straight guy to these two knuckleheads, Lou Melagrana and Dr. Durant. Lou,
Lou,
tell them about
Amigo
you.
Like Melagrana. Find us on Facebook, Amigo Like. Find us all over YouTube. You can find us all over the place, and with these guys constantly posting and talking about different topics. And again, we love doing these discussions for NayrandKavura with our StarPod log. We appreciate the opportunity to come out here and speak about them, and I hope you guys definitely enjoyed what we did here today. On that, I think it's time to sign off and off to the next adventure.
Till next time.
Who does?